So a $600 pension 10, 15 years ago won't buy much of anything here today.
And why the millennial generation is starting to give up because they can't afford to get a good job or own a house.
8 million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3.
It is. And people are going to start rioting in the streets.
Was reported to have asked Putin for military support that would help him stay in power.
We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
And they ignore him, and 8 more years goes by till Bernie himself finally admits to his sons, hey, I've been running a Ponzi scheme.
Does its dominance mean it can use the alliance for its own ends?
Since 1981, bond yields, also known as coupon rates, have just gone down and down and down.
Federal Reserve note will be your biggest financial liability.
We're live. RTD Late Night YouTube Talk Show. Detroit's #1 late night YouTube talk show. Somewhat different. Doing a second stream. Figured I would just connect one last time for this evening. Got a couple of things to share with you. Just a moment ago doing some posting on the blog, and I got a message from someone about the Deutsche Bank situation, so I figure I would dive in deeper and pull up a couple things and share my thoughts or whatnot and just talk it out a little bit. So with that being the case, welcome to this evening's live stream. Also, I want to get your guys' thoughts on the interview I did earlier with Mr. Berwick. Would love to hear your thoughts on that and keep it moving. So with that being the case, as always, if we have any new viewers, let me know where you're watching from in the chat. I would definitely acknowledge your presence. And then there's a number, 313-462-0027. Give me a call, and we can allow your voice to be heard. So with that being the case, let's dive right in. So who we got thus far? We got Spirit King, low blood pressure. We got Black Ubiquity, says peace. Scott Robinson, low blood pressure. Nathaniel, James, Joe, Kenneth, second live stream. Yeah, something different. And so this live stream is going to be relatively short. Got a couple of things I want to pull up and, just share my 2 cents on it. We got Paul. It says Jessica Albert says evening. Who else? Dario, Norm, LT Flying, Dave from Texas. We got I'm New, Jessica from Chicago. How you doing? We got Normal from Oregon. We got Kamitha from Connecticut. All right. It says low blood pressure. Mike, I tried to buy $300 of silver, had bank card issues, couldn't do it. Oh, blood. That's not good. That's not good. And also, I mentioned how possibly in the near future we're going to have some issues with utilizing Visa and MasterCard when it comes time for people to try to make their last big purchases at a time where, there might be some issues with our financial system. So we'll see how that plays out. We got Joe from Chicago. Appreciate you guys tuning in. The things that make me smarter. So I can't make you smarter, but I can just share some information with you and allow you to process it and do what you got to do with it. Charles H. from Delaware, the first state. All right, sounds good. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And so Norm said, I think that bankruptcy with Deutsche Bank is a rumor. And so that's what I want to talk about. So let me get right into it. So someone sent me an article, and so I wanted to shine some light on it a little bit, share my 2 cents on that matter. And so from the article here, it's basically, if you just Google Deutsche Bank bankruptcy or whatever, you get a lot of claims or rumors or just, I can't really say what I want to say, false information or just ahead of its time. I'll probably say ahead of its time information. And so here's just a little quick 3-paragraph snippet from How Turner News Radio Show. So, he's obviously Google ranking up pretty high with this particular statement here. And so, as I mentioned, it's more so a forewarning, of what's to come. Because, once again, a couple months ago, I think it was, I did a full extensive rundown on just the GSIBs, or the globally systemic important banks, their resolution plan for when they have to address issues as far as their futures. And so what I did was to give you an idea of what's actually going on And so once again, Deutsche Bank is such a mess. It's hard to really understand how it's going to be broken down. But there are actually documentations about how they have to file bankruptcy. So bankruptcy is it's embedded into how they're going to resolve their issues as best as they can. The problem is that they're trying to have a controlled demolition due to the fact that Deutsche Bank is so big. They got so many branches and so much. They're entangled in so much stuff because the system has been designed to allow them to do whatever they want it to do, meaning the globally systemic important banks, of which Deutsche Bank is probably one of the leading ones due to its derivatives exposure of all types of basically interbank legalized gambling mechanisms that they've used. So here's the article here. Once again, it doesn't say much, but it just talks about rumors, but it's gotten a lot of headway. So I figured I would dive in a little bit deeper and share with you a couple things that are primary mainstream stories. So here we have one, which is about Deutsche Bank. And so once again, it says regulators press Deutsche Bank boss to drop dual roles. So this was as of yesterday. And so Christian Sewing is obviously doing more than he probably can, taking on multiple roles. So he's made the headwinds with basically being asked to step down from some of the roles that he's in charge of. And so to give you an idea, it says supervisors want Mr. Sewing to concentrate on running Germany's largest lender as a chief executive. It says the bank has 90,000 employees and 1.5 trillion in total assets. Quote, neither of his roles are part-time jobs, says the supervisory official. And so here we have something very telling. The bank has about 90,000 employees globally. And so I'm going to get to some stuff here in a minute about what's happening in the U.S. And so this is what's the most alarming. It says they have 1.5 trillion in total assets. And so they're sitting on 1.5 total in assets, but their liabilities, for some reason, wasn't mentioned in this article here because it dwarfs 1.5 trillion. So without having the information in front of me, my first guess, unless somebody want to pull it up for me, I want to say on book liabilities definitely probably 15, 20 trillion or something like that. And then derivative exposure, as far as all the not illegal, but the backdoor gambling situation they got going on there is definitely in the high trillions as well. If not, I want to say 100 trillions. But I'll actually look it up. But 1.5 trillion assets, not enough to cover all their liabilities. So that's an issue. And so we got 90,000 people that are expected on or dependent upon Deutsche Bank and Mr. Sewing here handling business or else. So once again, he's in the paper for having more roles than he's probably capable of. So something worth taking note of. Then here's another article. It says Deutsche Bank must show it can do more than just shrink. And so as I mentioned, their objective right now is to try to get and wind this thing down as best they can before it becomes a true domino that tips over every other bank. And so a lot of things here that stands out. It says the first progress report came Wednesday. It says as Deutsche Bank posted a third quarter net loss of $832 million or $924 million, which includes a $1 billion pre-tax loss in its so-called capital release unit. And so pre-tax loss. And so Alan Myers, who's coming on next week, is going to break down how banks themselves, because they create out of nothing, and then they have to report as a business entity their losses and stuff like that. He's basically hinting at that they don't really have to pay taxes the way that we do, because once again, they can conjure up funds out of the blue and have to report upon losses based upon a conjured up currency they bring up, which basically saying they're getting a free ride anywhere it goes. So this pre-tax loss is not really going to be something that's going to bother them. And so definitely I'll have to dive deeper in with Mr. Myers next week, but definitely make sure you guys tune into it. But here's just some more information here. It says, to be convincing, though, Deutsche Bank must not only execute on cost savings and the divestitures, but also deliver revenue growth in its core businesses. So once again, they're trying to shrink things while stay profitable in an industry that's dependent upon higher interest rates so that they can make a profit off of depositors and investors and whatnot. So they're having issues. Here's another article. Deutsche Bank to pass on negative rates to major customers. And so this was as of this past week, Friday. And so here we have one of their members here. This could be Mr. Soon. No, this is Karl von Rohr said in an interview with Frankfurter, whatever. It says German banks have already paid several billion euros in penalty rates for their deposits with the ECB. So this negative environment that they're in the ECB, which will spur and go even deeper because of Christine Lagarde is now at the helm of the ECB. So she's definitely going to continue to do what Mario Draghi did, which was to drop rates and punish savers. And so they're paying billions in a penalty for parking funds at the ECB. And in one of my prior interviews with Marco from Netherlands, he referenced that they set up a different pool for the ECB bank where they allowed the too big to fail banks to park their funds in a different side of the bank that is not taxed with the interest rates. And so they're creating different ways of avoiding losses for these banks here. So, but once again, they're passing on rates to savers. Therefore, whatever you have parked in a bank at Deutsche Bank, if you're a high net income individual, you're going to get less back guaranteed. So it takes away the whole idea of parking funds, allowing them to grow, because this type of stuff here means that they will not grow. And so let me keep it moving forward. So what I thought I would do is share with you some of the resolution aspect. And so I just typed in banking resolution, and let me see what popped up. And so I got a couple things here to pull. Okay, so the living wills or resolution plans. And so every GSIB primarily, but also commercial bank and down the line, every bank here that has more than 50 billion worth of assets in their possession, they fall into this category. And so the living will is basically saying that their last little bit of information that they have to present to the FDIC and the Federal Reserve Bank as to how they're going to resolve all their matters. And so bankruptcy is baked into the cake as a way for them to get out of a lot of the things that they created for themselves. And so give you an idea here, it says Section 165D of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act requires that banks holding companies with total consolidated assets of 50 billion or more, non-bank financial companies designated by the Financial Stability Oversight Committee Council. So Financial Stability Oversight Council, FSOC, part of the Federal Reserve, are the ones responsible for gathering this information. So it says each plan, commonly known as a living will, must describe the company's strategy for rapid and orderly resolution in the event of material financial distress or failure of the company. So every bank, as I mentioned, 50 billion or more, has to come up with their will on who's going to get cut, who's going to get shortcut. And if you read some of the resolutions, it's going to be the shareholders, i.e. the depositor. So just to give you, I can stop beating the bush and give you the full scoop. The depositors will take the haircut. So here's something here. And so every year they've been updating their resolution plan every day. They've been updating their will every year. So here is a little list of all the banks that do business in the U.S., what they got to present to the Federal Reserve as to how they're going to not spill over and cause mass contagion. And so when you scroll down, you get all types of banks. You got Ally Financial, American Express Company, BB&T, Fifth Third, Huntington. So no doubt if you bank with one of these banks, they're on here. They got a game plan as to how they're going to resolve things. And so here's one here that says Deutsche Bank. So I clicked on that one. And when you click on that, it gives you a short little letter, but FDIC. And so everybody also believes that the FDIC, which is the insurance company of the banks, that they have enough funds to make sure that everyone is made whole if there is a systemic event. Unfortunately, I cannot have time now, but if you go look at the FDIC, what they're sitting on in the form of reserves, yeah, don't count on much. So anyway, so as I was reading through this, a little bit of information here, something jumped out. And so it says, likewise, July 1st, 2020 remains a applicable date for completion of the resolvability enhancement initiatives in the 2018 feedback letter. And so words that jumped out: resolvability enhancement initiatives. Don't that sound like some real complicated stuff there? And so resolvability enhancement initiatives. So this is what this is boiling down to. Them trying to resolve matters in a timely fashion so that when the time comes, everything will be on paper, everything will be figured out, just to show you how much they've been planning for this very event that's coming. Is if you go to Deutsche Bank's U.S. resolution plan. So this is what they submitted to the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, in 2018. I couldn't find an updated version as of yet, so I'm not sure if they updated it, but it gives an entire game plan as to how they plan on resolving their issues here in a orderly fashion, as if this next contagion is going to be orderly. But to cut the chase a little bit, over the last several years now, more than 5 years for sure, they've been working on this plan. And so they've already chopped up the mother companies, as these things are going to talk about, and they've put some of their assets in different categories and subsidiaries and whatnot. So give you the idea. Here's a little table of contents. Thumb through it. What jumped out initially was, it says our U.S. resolution strategy. It says organizational structure of Deutsche Bank's U.S. operations. So this is primarily focused on how they're going to try to resolve things in the U.S. So scroll down a little bit. Definitely some good reading if you got time on your hands. But it says enhancement, resolvability of our U.S. operations. Give you a little bit of what's going on here. It says, we operate in the United States primarily through Deutsche Bank Securities Incorporated and Deutsche Bank Trust Company Americas. So once again, there's so many subsidiaries, and Deutsche Bank is what we've been given as the head honcho in Germany. But in every country around the world, they have tentacles that run into every other country. So they got all types of subsidiaries and all types of acronyms for what they do here. It says the broker, dealer, and lead bank subsidiaries of Deutsche Bank USA and through Deutsche Bank New York, our New York branch. It says DBSI and DBTCA represent 94% of Deutsche Bank's U.S. total assets. So just those two subsidiaries own an overwhelming majority. Then it says, since 2015, Deutsche Bank New York has simplified its business mix, and we have significantly reduced our reliance on Deutsche Bank New York as a derivatives booking hub. So, as I mentioned, since 2015, that's 4 years ago, they've been winding down, preparing for the day that they have to utilize this piece of documentation here. But just to show you that they've already been working on this. So just the idea, you see an article says that, there's a claim Germany's Deutsche Bank has reportedly filed bankruptcy. They've been working on this very moment when it is official for several years now. And so what's the catch is, I'm not sure if it tells you directly in here because I didn't get a chance to go too deep into it. But like always, if you read the fine print, it tells you who's going to be taking the losses. And so let me see if it thumbs out. So as you guys see, all the technical things and just their game plan as to how they plan on trying to bring this thing down for a smooth landing. But I read JP Morgan Chase. I read and another one, and it's plain English right there. It says, losses will be incurred by A, shareholders, B, and it gave a nice little listing of who was going to be taking a haircut. So it'll take forever to read this, but once again, I'll put this in the chat for those that might have an interest to further dive a little bit deeper. So I'll put that in there so you guys get a chance to take a look at it. And so here's something else that I thought was worthwhile, and it says December 6, 2018. This is the GSIB resolution. And so the FDIC Systemic Resolution Advisory Committee. So once again, there's a board of people that's at work, they've been at work for a long time now trying to figure out how they're going to resolve this issue, because everybody knows that there's some problems. Now it's a matter of how can they control it. They want a controlled demolition as opposed to a flat-out contagion that causes a complete meltdown. Because think about it, if it's a complete meltdown, there's no way that these banks could ever regain the confidence of the public because of them having lost pretty much everything that they've thought was theirs, but in actuality it's not really yours if it's in a bank because you loaned it to the bank. But You get what I'm saying? So just take a look at this, because this is more information as to how they're trying to bring this thing down on a smooth landing. It says GSIB resolution making bankruptcy work. So here we have GSIBs, globally systemic important banks, their resolution, their last living will and testament, making bankruptcy work. So they're trying to figure out how exactly they're going to make this thing work. So here we go. So since 2016, they've been working on some things, and here's a nice little fine bullet print as to how they're putting it together. And as I scroll through, it's more documentation, but then they start giving you a little map. And so here's when it gets really interesting. So we had something called the single point of entry in bankruptcy. So all the GSIBs have this type of graph in their resolution package. And so it gives you an idea as to how they're going to try to resolve and break up the subsidiaries. So we got the BHC, and it says in Chapter 11 proceedings. So let me see if I can read this for you. So I forgot how they broke down in the other ones, but the mother company, so Deutsche Bank as the mother company, will file Chapter 11. But over the last 5, 6, 7 years, as I mentioned, they've been already breaking off and pulling assets from certain places, trying to retain as much wealth as they can while selling off and get rid of as much junk as they can. That's how there's been articles about Deutsche Bank trying to sell off and create, I think it was called create a bad bank, create an actual bad bank where they can drop a lot of their junk, non-performing loans into it and try to package it up and sell it or whatever they were trying to do with it. But here we got just the resolution aspect. So the mother company's going to file Chapter 11, put it into a trust, and then they're going to create a new holding company. They're going to create a whole new entity out of nowhere that will probably be the next tier of banking after the head mother is, files and goes through issues and has to address all issues with deposit holders or whatnot. It's going to be in our Chapter 11 side. So here we have a new holding company. So they're going to come out with some type of new spinoff. They say, just for example, if this was Deutsche Bank, they'll say, they'll probably say, they probably can't use Deutsche Bank because that'll leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So they'll probably say something like, I don't know, Deutsche Stein Mark, or I don't know, whatever. You get what I'm saying. They'll come out with some fancy name that'll have probably no association with Deutsche Bank if it's leave a sour taste in people's mouth. JP Morgan Chase or any of those other too big to fail banks. They're going to have to rebrand themselves, basically is what it's going to boil down to. And more lingo here. But then you got a recapitalized bank. They're going to pull some of the assets probably from the mother bank, put it over here. They got recapitalized domestic broker dealers. So some of the things that's happening in other countries, they're going to pull some assets there and put them in this new window. And then you got recapitalized foreign broker and dealers. So you got domestic and foreign. So they're going to start putting all these subsidiaries which were broken up during the mother load Chapter 11 bankruptcy stuff and bring it back under the belt of these new companies or whatever. And so that's, you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. But just, this is what the game plan is. So when I saw the article about Deutsche Bank filing for bankruptcy, my thought was, oh yeah, bankruptcy it's in the cards. Like, you didn't know that. Like, and so I read the Dodd-Frank bill after it was, 2013, 14 is when I started going through Dodd-Frank, because I was concerned with the fact that the bail-in portion of that bill is in there. So I was concerned with the bail-in portion. So I actually did some research on that back then and found out that it's within the Dodd-Frank that the banks, as a part of the resolution package, they have the opportunity to freeze all activity for a small window of time. I want to say they said something, don't quote me, but I think they said up to 6 to 7 weeks, I think, where they can freeze activity. Therefore, you can't get in, get out while they do some of this restructuring stuff. And during our time frame there, that's a part of the whole bail-in concept, because not only is Chapter 11 included, where there'll be a haircut from depositors, and what they'll end up doing, I think, is issuing equity or something, or they might even try to roll out some type of bank coin so that you'll have the feeling of having ownership in something while your dollars or digital dollars are being siphoned or whatever. So yeah, so it goes much deeper than I'm able to explain right now. But I've been looking at this stuff over and over again for quite some time. So I try to put bits and pieces together. But once again, I'll put this in the chat So people, if you have interest, you can dive deeper for yourself. But this is just kind of some of the things I wanted to share based upon the bankruptcy aspect. So here you have bankruptcy. It's all written down in documentation, and it's 2016, 2017. So these are just steps that they already have in play for this day and time when there is an official announcement that the Deutsche Bank is filing for bankruptcy, as well as JP Morgan Chase, and as well as all the GSIBs in general. And so here's some interesting verbiage here. It says the International Swaps and Derivatives Association rules and U.S. protocol. So that sounds really sophisticated right there. Like, they really are trying to think hard as to how they're going to handle all that stuff. But here's 15 pages of information that holds value because it's, once again, somewhat of a game plan as to how they're going to try to bring this thing down. So what I wanted to do is just get on, share some things with you guys, give you a chance to read and assess and determine what do you think officially, because once again, it's already written in paper as to what they're going to do. So don't be surprised because it's in their will that they're going to file Chapter 11. All the too big to fail banks have to file Chapter 11 because they have more liabilities than they have assets. And that's been a part of the game plan all along. The banks have been able to get away with an unprecedented amount of activity without any type of repercussions. And so it's usually in Main Street, if a person they're not able to handle their affairs, they're in over their head, bankruptcy is an option for some people. And so it looks like the same option that the consumer has, the too big to fail banks also have the same option. But unlike your small person who filed for bankruptcy because their own personal consumption probably got a little bit too big, or give or take whatever happened, with these banks here, they're able to file bankruptcy and pretty much destroy people's lives. Big difference. So you got one person, individual person filing bankruptcy, hurting themselves and their credit and all that stuff like that. But then you got GSIBs ruining lives and futures and, stuff like that. So, yeah, but that's what it is, people. So I thought I would just share this with you guys and put it out there and let you know my 2 cents on this. But bankruptcy is in the cake, so you shouldn't be surprised. And so let me go back through the chat a little bit. If there's any questions or thoughts, let me know. I'll try to catch up on what's going on here. Jeff MacArthur says, it says the FDIC will make you whole, but not when you will be made whole. Not when you will be made whole. Jeff, very good point there. So once again, the whole idea after the great financial crisis of increasing the deposit insurance aspect from, I think it was 100,000 to 250,000, was to instill confidence once again, to not create a panic. So people feel like, okay, if they feel insured, they won't run down trying to withdraw. And the whole goal all along was to keep confidence going. Like I did the video the other day, faith and confidence. You remove any one of those two, faith or confidence, in the system or the banking structure or the healthcare and the government or anything, that's going to cause people to begin questioning. Then therefore, whatever people think they own, they're going to go try to get it out. And then that's when the problem takes place, because once again, a lot of things, if it's not in your possession or you don't have access to it immediately, then you have to then question as to whether or not you really own it. And then if you do think you own it, attempt to try to get it all within a timely manner. And then you'll more than likely see that it's not as easy as you think it is. Therefore, it's not readily available. And so that's some issues we're having in Europe. I've done articles in the past about all those financial companies, hedge funds, whatever. They're gambling. They're betting on much riskier assets, and people can't get out fast enough. So what they do, they shut it down. Therefore, can't get your stuff. So that's what it is, people. And I thought I would share my 2 cents on that. And so that's all she wrote. What else we got going on? So as always, anybody, any new viewers, feel free to let me know you're watching from the chat. We'd love to acknowledge your presence. Also, for those that had a chance to catch the earlier interview or did not, or saw the replay, what are your thoughts on that interview, Mr. Burrick? I tried to, ask some serious questions and trying to, ruffle some feathers just a little bit. And so I'm going to have him back on, hopefully next couple of weeks, give or take. And I got Mr. Chris Dwayne coming on. And so I want to see if Chris is open and willing to sit down with Mr. Burke, and we can go back and forth and just, lay it all out on the table because I think that's where we're at this current moment. I'm in the mood of deliberately trying to help people become comfortable being uncomfortable, because I think that's how the best chance we have at getting results is everybody getting outside their comfort zone and beginning to question some things. So Paz says the FDIC will bail you out with funds that will have very little value because inflation will eat it away. At the end of the day, yeah. And so, as I think Jeff mentioned, is that they'll make you whole, or they'll reimburse you your cash or your funds. But the question is, in what time manner? Because if it's a systemic event, that means every bank is going to have issues. Therefore, and so the M2 or M3 is no longer. So the M2 money supply, I think it's like 16 trillion or 15, 16 trillion. That includes money markets, savings, banks, checks, CDs, all that stuff like that. All those products are included in the bank's book, on the bank's books. And so therefore there's only 1.7 trillion worth of actual physical currency above ground or in existence. But there's 16 or so trillion of products that people think they own. But once again, they're digital products, so they're not even products that are able to be redeemable in cash because there's not enough cash. So there lies a major problem, is what I'm trying to get at. So yeah. Oh my goodness. Says we got Avocado Joy from Tampa, Florida. Avocado Joy, I think you are a Patreon supporter, if I'm not mistaken. I appreciate your support, my friend. Appreciate you for being a blessing. BC Matrix said, great interviews. Appreciate that. Thank you. Says, read the protocols of the elders of Zion. This plan has seen underway since the Battle of Waterloo. Rumpel, good stuff there. I will highlight that and try to shine some light on that one day. I'll just Google that and put it up in my chat so I'll have something to look at. What else we got going on? It says, you have to forget that the Catholic Church teaching and seek God through Jesus. Start with a Bible-believing church. LT Flying. Spirit King. Yeah, so that's definitely something worthwhile. I mean, people open up their eyes to just being open to talk about things that are uncomfortable, such as spirituality. It's one of the things where you can't escape it, you can't avoid it, you can label it whatever you want to label it, but, you can't get around it. And so those are more things I want to try to get into because, once again, it's all in good fun as well as just trying to be of help, of use, of service to people. So because that is a part of my life, and therefore I want to be up and honest with everybody. So it says the New World Order isn't world domination. Okay, what is it? What are the banks that have exposure to Deutsche Bank? Okay, that's a good question. Let me look this up real quick. There is a interesting diagram out there that I think, if I can find it, it does a good job of summarizing the dangers and who's all connected in the. Here we go. Okay, so let me see if I can pull up one big enough. Let me see. Give me a second. Okay, let me see if I can pull something up. Okay, so here's something I can pull up, which is fairly big. So this gives you an idea of the systemic risk among GSIBs. Excuse me. And so in the middle of this is an article from Zero Hedge. I can put the article in the chat. But here we have the contagion event of all the banks that are intertwined and connected in somehow, some way. So the leading domino in the middle happens to be Deutsche Bank. And then we got on the outskirts, we got in the top right, we got all the U.S. based. And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 globally systemic important banks. So you total all 8 of those. Was that like a fuchsia or what is that? Purple, whatever it is, just say purple. You total all the assets of those purple banks and their liabilities. There's a big discrepancy because, say, out of 8 banks, they may have, say 10 trillion in assets, but their total exposure to derivatives alone could be 500 trillion or something outrageous. Then you factor in the green, which happened to be the Asian area. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in Asia, which are too big to fail. And then in the blue, you got all the European banks. And it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. HSBC, Standard Chartered, Barclays, UBS, Unicredit, BNB Paribas. So these are all the banks that are interconnected. So all of these banks, I believe, have a resolution plan or a living will that probably says similar things. It has to do with a Chapter 11 bankruptcy and a map of how they're going to try to resolve things by breaking things off, keeping the good stuff, letting go of the bad stuff, and allowing the people caught in the middle, which happen to be the people who invest in these institutions, will be on the short end of the stick. They will not win. You will not win, in my opinion, if you are dependent upon these institutions right here. So just something worth thinking about, I believe. But yes, I hope that helps. And what I'll do is I will put this in the chat so people can take a minute and do some homework for yourself. And once again, everything I'm sharing here is just my personal opinion. It is for edutainment purposes only. So do your own homework and educate yourself as best you can so that you know what you know. And then if you know what you know, you can then share it with other people. And so we got James here says, my bank account was frozen when I tried to withdraw $200 from an ATM. They said that amount triggered a fraud alert. Interesting, James. That's interesting. I've had some scenarios where, yeah, like, and it's given to us as a security measure. They're trying to keep us safe and all that. So okay, because I've had times where out of the country I use my card, it get declined. I got a call, and it's a pain in the butt, but it's one of the things I'm thankful for, because another time I was out of the country, I used my card number was stolen, and I looked at my statement like a month later, and I'm looking at, and I'm missing several $100s, and I look up, whoever got hold of my bank information, my card number, was in like Haiti or something, charging up all types of stuff, and it didn't get flagged in time, so I was kind of disturbed. And so I had to go through a resolution process and basically say, how am I in Michigan and Haiti or Dominican, wherever it was at the same time? I'm not. Somebody stole my information. So got reimbursed, but it's one of the things where part of me was thankful that I got flagged one time, but the other time I wish I would have got flagged because, you know, whoever swiped that card, they got away with a lot of stuff. So, but anyway, but that is what it is. But anyway, people, it's been great hanging out tonight. 37 minutes. Didn't want to be on long. Just wanted to share my thoughts. As always, if you guys have enjoyed the back and forth, click the thumbs up button. And this type of information here, once again, false alarm for now in regards to Deutsche Bank. But as you guys have had a chance to see, I've shown you, and I put some links in the chat where you can go and see for yourself that bankruptcy is a part of the plan. And so it's just a forewarning that we were given with this whole rumor of a Deutsche Bank bankruptcy. But they've been working on bankruptcy for the last probably a decade, since the great financial crisis. So they've been knowing for some time that that's going to be something they need to do. So we just got a little heads up. But yet I assume you might got informed to a couple of things you may not have known. So thumbs up in the chat. All the information you need down below is there. As always, if there's anything resource-wise, all types of, I got my 4 steps. My 4 steps to waking yourself up the paradigm at Rethinking a Dollar. Go there. Got your RTD silver coin and whatever you need, it's there for you if you want it. So go get it. And other than that, people, it's been blessed. It's been great hanging out. As always, for those that want to take their contribution to the channel to a higher level, Patreon. I got a couple of projects we're rolling out pretty soon. So those who are supportive now will definitely be rewarded down the line in a favorable way. So I appreciate the support. Other than that, people, it's been great hanging out. Be blessed and be safe. I'm running out of air tonight. Peace. Hey there, sorry for this interruption, but I wanted to bring something to your attention. If you've been enjoying this live stream, why don't you partner with me and be a support to the channel via Patreon membership for just a minimum of $5 a month. All you have to do is scroll down beneath this video here, click the Patreon link, then consider donating as little as $5 a month toward the channel. A little bit of crumbs can go a long way, and I appreciate your support. Now, let's get back to this live stream.